I have started stealing though.
Oh, you know, I've heard of friends either just ringing out everything is bananas. 4011, that's the code for it.
249 વાળાનું સ્ટીકર લેવાનું અને આ 349 વાળાનું કાર્ડ નાખવાનું અને 249 માં પડ્યા.
The number one shoplifter that he's apprehending or stopping is senior citizens.
That's
if that doesn't break your heart,
right,
then I don't know what else does.
Now, before we begin the show, I feel I have to acknowledge the sacred importance and deep historical value of Canada's National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, sometimes known as Orange Shirt Day, other times known as Canada's National Surfing Day. This is a day where government bureaucrats and those extremely hard-working politicians in Ottawa get to take yet another day off of work, put on an orange t-shirt, and pretend to care about Indigenous Canadians. Never mind the fact that fully half of all Indigenous children still live below the poverty line, and many of them still do not have access to clean drinking water. Today, our government bureaucrats get to wear an orange t-shirt and feel like they're making a difference. Also, it's important that they get the day off of work because we really wouldn't want to be overworking government bureaucrats. After all, we know that forcing bureaucrats to work in the office a whopping 3 days a week is tough enough already.
The new policy, most federal government employees will have to work an additional day a week in the office, now up to 3 days of their own choosing, starting next week.
So on this fake commemorative holiday where our government pretends to care about Indigenous Canadians, make sure you take the time to reconcile with all of the awful crimes you are personally responsible for as a settler on stolen land. All right, with that out of the way, let's get to the business of the day. You know, it's no longer just Indian international students stealing from Canada's food banks. Shoplifting among not just young Canadians, but even seniors, is now so prevalent and so common that young Canadians with steady incomes are now admitting to shoplifting and laughing about it on podcasts like this. Take a listen.
Everyone's poor. We're all poor. Everything is expensive. I have started stealing though.
Oh, what?
Yeah.
Go on.
Sorry, Galen Weston.
You know, I've heard of friends either just ringing out everything is bananas. 4011, that's the code for it. The grocery store code, and you're typing it in. I've also heard of people grabbing the little paper bags that you put mushrooms in and filling it with fancy cheese.
Oh.
Yeah.
Never use a basket.
Oh.
Always use a tote bag. So you fill up the tote bag, you get to the self-checkout, you just empty the tote bag. Oops, did I leave the most expensive item in there and forget to pay for it?
Yeah.
Like, you know, you realize when you're at home, of course.
Yeah, right.
But then it's too far to go back.
That's right. How ridiculous is it that cost of living in Canada's got so bad that we're just sitting here on a comedy podcast, just fully just being like, 15 years ago, people would be like, you deserve to go to jail. That is so untactful. Now everyone's like,
Yes, you do today as well. I think that's the important part. This is still criminal. It's not really a funny thing. Unless you're like these people.
Get him. Yeah.
I know. It's not even about the excitement. Because before, when I would steal, it would just be like, you know, this is exciting. I'm doing something wrong. Now it's like, I actually will die if I don't steal this chicken.
You know, in Canada, you can get food for free by going to a food bank. That is, of course, if you don't line up behind an international student who happens to take all the food for themselves. But you won't go hungry in Canada. You won't die of starvation. Sure, you might not get your fancy French cheese at the food bank, but you at least won't go hungry. But there's a reason why people choose to line up at the food bank instead of going to a grocery store and stealing from that grocery store. Because not only is it illegal, but it's morally wrong, obviously. They have morals. People have a sense of shame and embarrassment, something these two comedians clearly do not have. But life in our country is now so bad and so difficult. Young people are barely scraping by, and they are resorting to shoplifting. And they don't really care because crime all around them is increasing. So why would they care about admitting to shoplifting on a podcast? It's not like they're going to get arrested or face punishment for it. And it's not just young Canadians doing this. Seniors, sometimes in their 70s and sometimes in their 80s, are having to shoplift, having to steal from the grocery store because they can no longer afford to buy food.
I used to own a security firm, and I have a lot of friends who do loss prevention and stuff like that. There's a grocery store right around the corner from here. Their number
in this riding.
In this riding.
Okay.
Their number one, and my friend works loss prevention there. The number one shoplifter that he's apprehending or stopping is senior citizens.
That's
if that doesn't break your heart,
right,
then I don't know what else does. And I said to him, I said, what are you talking about? He said, Ned, I don't know if I can do this job anymore. He goes, Ned, I'm having to stop 80-year-old, 75, 82-year-old men, women. They're stealing food, and when I stop them, they say, I can't afford to eat. What do you want me to do?
Totally something that happens in a normal country. It's like the Canadian people are literally regressing under this current government. Our culture is regressing. Stealing from the grocery store is not something that normal people would casually be joking about and admitting to in a morally healthy country. Seniors wouldn't have to be stealing from the grocery store in a normal, functioning country. It is not something that the Canadian public would generally tolerate or accept, but it's happening now in Canada, and it's a common occurrence. Like I said before, in a morally healthy country, this wouldn't happen. But that's what we're dealing with here. This is a moral crisis. Life is now so miserable and so difficult for so many Canadians that we are losing our moral anchors and we are culturally regressing. Take a look at some of the comments under this video of these two comedians, if we can even call them that. These are the holier-than-thou, virtue-signaling progressive types who vote for socialist Marxist policies, then steal when the inevitable results of said policies occur. I've heard this from multiple sources. Regular citizens just blatantly stealing groceries. Commies feel entitled to other people's stuff, so they have no problem stealing. I don't know what's worse, the stealing or the cringe podcast comedy. Both should be criminal offenses. Now, I don't really know what it is about this guy. I can't quite put my finger on it, but something tells me he's not going to die if he doesn't get that stolen chicken. Also, you have to be a certain level of stupid to admit to stealing on a podcast that many people are going to see. Good luck on your next attempt trying to get your stolen chicken from Loblaws or your fancy imported French cheese.
The fastest way I know to get a picnic basket.
Here's an idea. Maybe just pay for the chicken. And this is not just happening in Canada's large cities, it's happening everywhere in our country. Canadian families are having to go hungry in the northernmost parts of Labrador and in Canada's large urban centers. For example, in Nain, Labrador, the northernmost part of Labrador, the cost of food skyrocketed 62% from 2011 to 2021, forcing families to skip meals in order to put food on their table for their children. In 2022, 24% of Canadian children were living below the poverty line. Close to 1.8 million children in Canada in 2022 live below the poverty line. Oh, and as of the summer of this year, 25% of Canadians were experiencing poverty. So when fully 25% of your people, of Canadians, are experiencing a poverty-like standard of living, what on earth is the government doing giving away billions of dollars in foreign aid, giving Ukraine $13 billion, importing millions of people into this country when your own people are going hungry, when 1.8 million children are living in poverty? And I hate to bring you even more bad news, but you already all knew this. The people that we are bringing into Canada are not exactly the best and the brightest. You've seen the videos of the international students from India stealing from the food bank and telling other students how they can also steal from the food bank. But take a look at this video here because this is another level. We've got a foreigner, presumably from India, but I can't exactly be sure. He goes to a Canadian grocery store and in an attempt to save less than $1 per apple, swaps out the stickers on cheaper apples to more expensive apples so that he can save a few bucks by buying more expensive apples. And he films it on social media and posts it for others to do the same. Like I said, they really aren't the best and the brightest, but we already all knew that. Take a look at this video here.
249 વાળું છે અને 349 વાળું છે તો કશું કરવાનું નહીં આ 249 વાળાનું સ્ટીકર લેવાનું અને આ 349 વાળાનું કાર્ડ નાખવાનું અને તો એ આગળ સ્ટીકર મારી દેવાનું અને પછી આ તું લઈ લઉં तो 249 में पड़ा.
Unbelievable. What are these people doing in our country? Honestly. Take a look at these comments. Deport him immediately. Is this where Canada is going? The quality of people we bring in is unfathomable. We need Pierre Poilievre back in charge. This scumbag is stupid enough to videotape and post his activism. His face should be posted at all grocery stores with the quote, prohibited from entry. And then there was this video that also emerged on social media of a delivery driver in Whitby, Ontario, who, as he was approaching the house to drop off some booster juice, decided to spit in the drink and leave the drink on the porch for the customer. Because that is just totally a normal thing to do. Take a look at this video.
He's spitting in my drink.
So sorry.
Why did you, this is for my son, my 2-year-old son.
Yeah.
Why would you spit in my drink?
So sorry, sir.
Why? I want to know why you did it.
I don't know.
For what? We tipped you. What's the problem?
An absolutely insane situation in Whitby, Ontario, Canada, when a man sees his DoorDash driver spitting in his smoothie as he approaches his front door. He went back to check the doorbell footage, and sure enough, the delivery man did in fact spit in the smoothie intended for his child.
I mean, seriously, what would compel somebody to do that? To actually do that to somebody? This person presumably came to Canada recently. His English does not seem to be very good at all, so clearly he wasn't born here. So he's a guest in our country. He's a guest in our country, and he treats a Canadian like this, who literally gives him money. Who gives him money for a service, but in response he decides to spit in the food that he's delivering with his children in the back seat. What are these people doing? Who are we bringing into this country? There should be no tolerance for this behavior, like there should be no tolerance for stealing from the grocery store. Canadians are going hungry. Canadians are getting poorer. We have no business bringing in millions of people. We have no business sending out billions of our own money to foreign nations that will never return the favor to Canada. And we certainly have no business tolerating people who refuse to follow the rules, who make jokes about stealing from the grocery store. You know, I can remember when stealing from the grocery store was shameful. I can remember when we didn't have international students teaching other foreign students how to steal and rob from the poor in this country. I can remember when we didn't have delivery drivers from foreign nations spitting in food. Whatever happened to that country? That's the country I want to live in. That's the country I want to raise my children in. That's the country that I think all of us want to live in. Because this just isn't it. All right, everyone, that's going to do it for us today on the show. Thank you so much for tuning in. My name is Harrison Faulkner, and this is Ratio.